Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 18th of October 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, Blizzard reannounces something they've announced twice already. The Thief reboot is abandoning its experience system, and Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City no longer have games for Windows Live or SecuROM. All this and the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. The game formerly known as Blizzard All-Stars, which was formerly known as Blizzard Dota, is now known as Heroes of the Storm, and we have no gameplay footage of it whatsoever. The title was re-announced on the Blizzard site today with confirmation that it will be appearing at this year's BlizzCon in November. The website currently features a Carbot animations trailer, which demonstrates the game in a rather cutesy and amusing way, which is really the way that Carbot does things, which is fantastic. However, it doesn't show any gameplay footage whatsoever. The title formerly known as Blizzard All-Stars has been rather quiet over the past year or so, with initial Blizzard Dota announcements going all the way back to 2011, with panels at BlizzCon demonstrating early builds of the game. At that point, it disappeared off the face of the planet and was never seen again, now only to re-emerge 2 years later as Heroes of the Storm. This also means that the title will now be known as HOTS, just like Heart of the Swarm, which is no doubt going to be amusing and confusing, although Blizzard has insisted that the title be referred to as Heroes, as opposed to HOTS, which will no doubt work absolutely fine. I mean, no one calls the Xbox One the X-Bone, right? No, nobody would do something like that, don't be ridiculous. So what is it? Well, it is their version of Dota, and the entire game project did kind of smell like sour grapes, honestly, because this is something they lost the rights to. They lost in court to the trademark for Dota, and it's a mod that became one of the most popular games on the planet, and Blizzard didn't have any rights to it whatsoever. A very unfortunate thing indeed, is it not? And they are no doubt smarting over that, very much so. So they want to go after it in their own way, using their already fairly formidable range of 3 IPs, unless they plan on bringing the Lost Vikings, Blackthorn, and maybe even one of the cars from Rock and Roll Racing into the mix. So it's StarCraft, it is Warcraft, and it is Diablo. And it's in a Dota-style game of some description. What I've seen of it so far, obviously, is limited to what we saw like 2 years ago. What could be coming out of Heroes of the Storm now is anybody's guess. It is anybody's guess. We have no idea. Back then, they were demonstrating this idea of a more casual style of Dota, which sounds ridiculous when you think about it, because in the intervening years, we've had a massive surge of casual style Dota games. And some would even describe League of Legends as a more casual Dota, and that's only by a very small amount, yeah? Dota is a more complicated game, but that doesn't mean that League isn't complicated. It is absurdly complicated. It really, really is. Think about it. Think of someone that doesn't play PC games and tries to get into something like League of Legends. They have no idea what they're doing. The amount of stuff you actually have to learn to be even decent, like to not suck at those games, is astronomical in comparison to other titles. So don't even go around telling me, lol, it's a casual game, without a hint of irony. It isn't. Both of those games are very, very difficult, just to different degrees. So coming along and saying, well, we want to simplify the whole experience is fine, except that 20, 30 different companies have already done that. Have they done it well? Debatably. You know, you've got stuff like Infinite Crisis, which really takes the mantle of, hey, we created a Dota-style game, using a bunch of already popular IP to inspire our characters. What does that sound like to you? What about Smite? Hey, we made a Dota-style game that's in third-person perspective and uses a really interesting theme, and makes the whole leveling up and buying thing an awful lot easier. Guardians of Middle-earth. Hey, we made a Dota-style game using an existing IP. You see where I'm going with this? If this had come out a couple of years ago, it would have had a bit of an easier time of it. As it stands, though, with Dota 2 now in full release and gaining popularity rapidly, and League of Legends going nowhere anytime soon, this is going to be a tough fight. This is not like Hearthstone. Hearthstone comes into an arena that was a little bit niche and was dominated by a game whose online client is incredibly outdated and whose business model is also a little bit too expensive for most people. Magic the Gathering is an amazing game, but Magic the Gathering Online, its actual online client, is nowhere near as good as Hearthstone's is. And they simplified and streamlined that design and created a very attractive client with recognizable characters and a reasonable business model. And hey, yes, it has taken, so far, the collectible card game scene by storm. It has inspired an awful lot more CCGs to come our way, and that's very, very good. But we are talking about something that wasn't really dominant on the PC platform. There's stuff like the Pokemon game that you could play online, but that was really awkward in terms of its business model. You have smaller games like Shadow Era that are pretty good, but can't really compete with IP of that magnitude. And then you've got the kind of hybrid games like Might and Magic Duel of Champions and Scrolls that use the collectible card game idea and combo it together with a kind of hex-based strategy game. And then you've got Hearthstone, which is like, wow, look at this juggernaut just bowling everybody over. But with Heroes of the Storm, you're up against so much, and that scares me. What they have mentioned in the past, which again was about 2 years ago, was some interesting ideas like towers have ammo that need to be reloaded, which means that towers can't just keep laying into people. You can actually legitimately lay siege to a tower, and if you pressure it enough, it runs out of ammo and stops shooting for a while. They had the idea of mounts, yeah? So you could get back into the fight a little bit easier, a nice thematic way of doing so. They had all sorts of ideas. But the thing is, all of those ideas have basically been taken now and used in other games. The mount ideas kind of been taken by Strife, which gives you a speed boost as you walk out of your base. And they've also shortened the lane rush distance and things like that. This is going to be tricky, and more to the point, what do they intend to do with it from an esports standpoint? Are they going all in on the esports angle, or are they trying to create something a little bit more casual with less competitive stuff in mind? If they are, maybe there's a hole in the market, but I don't think that hole's very big, because there's plenty of games that are kind of surrounding that hole or taking little pieces of their own. Things like Awesome Noughts, which isn't really technically a Dota game, but it certainly fills that gap, saying, hey, you can have some of the experience here, and it's in a bit of a more casual way, and hey, we've also done a few things differently. This is a genre that's starting to get larger, and as a result, this is going to be a bit more difficult for Blizzard to break into. I actually dearly hope they don't go esports with this, but I just have this horrible feeling that they will. For one, of course, I want to see them focusing on StarCraft, which, as far as I'm concerned, is still the most enjoyable esport to watch, and I feel that they will focus on it less if they have a new toy to play with. And secondly, how the hell do you fight Dota and LoL in that space? How do you do that? I mean, even Smite has a decent esports scene, even Hon still has an esports scene, and then, of course, there are other games coming in that genre. It's a really tough fight, and I hope that Blizzard actually chooses not to engage in it. If they're going to make a casual game like this, which, yes, some of us are probably going to play. I'll play it. Of course I'll play it. Why wouldn't I? You know, I like the characters from Warcraft and StarCraft and Diablo, and I would love to try that out, but will it be a game that I stick with? I don't know. Can Blizzard kind of work their magic there? Can they streamline the elements that need to be streamlined in order to create that mass appeal, but still have enough competitiveness within the game for existing fans of, say, Dota or League of Legends to maybe give it a bash? I guess we will find out when BlizzCon rolls around and we see what's been going on under the hood for the past 2 years. Eidos Montreal has described how they've removed the experience system from Thief after fan outcry indicated it probably wasn't a very good idea. In their blog post over on the website, they stated, at first we wanted to outline the progression of the player with experience, but it was reducing our motivation to steal. The main goal of a thief should be to gain loot. Garrett is already the master thief, so we saw no need to have XP as a core mechanic. They also described that they had taken feedback from the forums, which indicated that the experience system was not a particularly good idea. As a direct result, now the system revolves around selling off your ill-gotten gains in order to buy various tools. What really worries me is the fact they thought it would be a good idea in the first place. Experience systems are thrown in really for no apparent reason these days, and it gets extremely annoying when you happen to have played a character that's made his way through 3 games and is clearly very good at what he does, suddenly reduced to the notion of having to unlock abilities for experience again. He's already bloody experienced, and rightfully so, says Eidos Montreal. He is already a master thief, but this game has been in development for years, and you're only just coming around to the realization now that the experience system might not be a very good idea. And if this was the only bad thing that I had heard about this particular game, I could maybe forgive it. So sometimes you end up in a bubble when you're developing games, and you get these ideas into your head that are not really firmly grounded in reality, and that can be a problem, and it takes maybe a little bit of light to be shone through the window in order to figure out what's lurking in the dark. But in this case, there's so much more that was demonstrated at E3 that was pointed out actually by Nathan Grayson on Rock Paper Shotgun that really made me very worried indeed. And the first part of that is the fact that it seems the combat is way easier. Now, do you remember the other Thief games? I hope so, because they were all based around stealth, and the last thing you wanted to do was fight in those games, because it was incredibly difficult to do, and guards could take you out. Because, hey, they're guards. They're good at fighting. You're not good at fighting. You're a thief. You're a sneaky bastard. That's what you're for. You can do stealth takedowns and things like that, but you don't want to get into a head-to-head fight. It's not a very good idea. You're not well armed, you're not well armored, and you will just be clubbed down by guys in chainmail. Good luck dealing with them. The problem is that, according to Nathan's playthrough and the E3 demo, he had no problem because the AI was dumb and he was able to just dodge around and slaughter 3 guards by doing little more than bopping them on the shoulder over and over again with the blackjack. Seems absolutely ridiculous. Well-trained guards with apparently electro weapons, as he was describing. He just was able to take them down no problem. And he was also noticing real problems with the stealth elements because the AI was so horribly inconsistent and would just ignore you. One should consider, of course, that that is an E3 demo, but you should also consider that's a vertical slice of gameplay, as they call it within the industry. And that's supposed to be polished up and, quite frankly, completely unrepresentative of the final product, because it's supposed to be better. It's supposed to show you the best bits. It's designed to advertise that game to journalists. And if it fails to do that, then, good lord, what is the rest of the game going to be like? The last part of it that seemed terrible, and I think all of this nonsense is indicative of a rather insidious modern design philosophy, was the idea that there's this big linear section where mansions are collapsing in flames and you're leaping over rooftops. And basically, it's a Call of Duty set-piece-a-thon, and it's a completely on-rails section which has no stealth in it at all. It's like, wow, this has become Assassin's Creed, hasn't it? And that would be a terrible thing indeed. These are all indicative of modern design decisions. I hate them so very much. Experience systems, linear QTE events, the ability to just fight a bunch of stuff instead of having to sneak around, because these days, apparently, if you can't fight everything, it's a rubbish game, right? Oh, just stop. I'm really concerned about Thief right now. It seems like they are making some decisions which would hopefully bring you to the conclusion that, hey, yeah, maybe it's gonna be a little bit better. But time is running out on this title. The fact that they have only just removed the experience system, and this game's supposed to be out in 4 months' time, is absurd. They're probably not going to keep delaying it because it's going to cost them too much money anyway. There's been a lot of issues with this game in development and a lot of very big disagreements as to how to deal with it, and I have a feeling it is going to be a colossal disappointment, especially when we have games like Dishonored that already basically pick up the Thief mantle and run with it in a very effective way. You know, they put their own spin on it and they're able to stand on their own, but they remind me very much of the Thief games of old. I am very concerned about this game, I really am, and I very much hope that this is all a lot of negativity for nothing, but what I've heard so far is not heartening at all. And finally, it's been announced that Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City now no longer have games for Windows Live and SecuROM DRM associated with them. They now operate on Steamworks, and unfortunately this does mean you're gonna have to create a new save file if you choose to actually update, which is unfortunate to say the least. The Mac version is now also available for Arkham City, and achievements for Steam have been added to Arkham Origins. If you have a retail version, you will be able to eventually redeem that key on Steam. Apparently that doesn't work as of yet, but it's going to be happening quite soon. Though, as I said before, bear in mind if you haven't finished the game yet, you probably want to hang on to your original version so you can beat that. Also, both Arkham Asylum and Arkham City will be automatically upgraded to the Game of the Year edition, which is actually stacked with DLC, which is, quite frankly, very generous of them. And they didn't have to do that, but it's pretty damn cool that they did. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Celebrate the death of games for Windows Live, folks. Celebrate what that death represents. That horrendous form of DRM, put in there by a company that was pretty much abandoning the PC as a gaming platform and unfortunately ruining game after game. Even Arkham City. This is not just an inconvenience thing. I am really not exaggerating this when I say that Games for Windows Live was a fundamental detriment to a lot of games. Arkham City is a prime example of that. Games for Windows Live deleted people's save games for months. It was terrible. When I tried to reinstall something like Lost Planet Extreme Conditions a few weeks ago, I couldn't do it because Games for Windows Live is on that bloody thing and it wouldn't let me. Games for Windows Live's terms and conditions prevented games from being sold in certain territories. So I was saying, hey, go buy this game, and a bunch of my viewers were like, oh, I live in Poland, or I live in Romania, or the Ukraine. I can't do it because they don't support Games for Windows Live in those countries. It was horrible. I am so glad to see it go away, and I hope that we never get it again. That level of integration with Xbox Live made no bloody sense. You know, I remember when one of the first games came out with this, it was Universe at War, and I have no doubt that Games for Windows Live played a big role in that game's failure. And it had some absurd stuff, like one of the biggest multiplayer modes was locked behind the Games for Windows Live Gold wall. You had to have an Xbox Live Gold account in order to play that mode. What an absurd idea! Why would you need Games for Windows Live Gold? What possible functionality could it give you that's remotely useful? And the answer is nothing. There is not a thing under Games for Windows Live which is not done much better on Steam, on Origin, on Raptor, even on Xfire, for God's sake, which is what, 10 years old plus now? It was disgracefully terrible. Oh, be so glad that that disappears and hope that we never see its like again. Alright folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch, but before I go, OC Remix is coming your way. Dark Cloud 2 is not a game that is often remixed, but it is a phenomenal PlayStation 2 RPG. Something that I recommend everyone try if they can. This is a remix of the track The Adventure That Never Ends, Russia's theme from Dark Cloud 2, and it's done in a style that is inspired by artists such as deadmau5 and Orbital. It's remixed by Flexstyle, and hopefully you enjoy it a lot. Download it for free in the description below this video, and I'll see you next time.